For months, the world seemed to hold its breath. Social media was buzzing with rumors, yet no one heard a single word from Juanita Bynum. Her silence became a mystery. People speculated, debated, and created their own versions of what might have happened. But Juanita chose to stay quiet. Behind closed doors, she was watching it, all the tweets, the posts, the endless chatter, and the assumptions that grew louder each day. She didn't speak because she believed that sometimes silence is stronger than words. Still, the questions persisted. Friends and colleagues would ask if she was planning to respond, if she would finally address the whispers. Deep down, Juanita knew she couldn't stay silent forever. There comes a moment when silence is no longer enough, and that moment was now approaching. Juanita Bynum is a woman who commands respect without needing to raise her voice. She has always been known for her strength, her composure, and her ability to stay grounded even when surrounded by chaos. People see her as confident yet approachable, someone who has achieved a balance between her public life and her private self. Despite the constant scrutiny that comes with being in the public eye, she has a way of remaining true to herself and her purpose. She rarely reacts to gossip, preferring to focus on her work, her mission, and the people she serves. It all began at a conference that many thought would be just another routine event. Dr. Valerie Moore, as always, stood confidently before a large audience, delivering a speech that was full of passion and conviction. She spoke about leadership, accountability, and the challenges women face when trying to stand firm in their beliefs. But somewhere between her words, there were phrases that sounded pointed, phrases that seemed to reference someone very specific. The speech ended, applause filled the room, and most attendees moved on, but not everyone. Within hours, clips of Valerie's speech were uploaded online, shared across social media, and dissected frame by frame. People began to interpret her words as subtle criticisms of Juanita Bynum. Some claimed she was calling out Juanita's leadership style, while others suggested there was tension between the two women. Memes, comments, and viral posts quickly followed. It wasn't long before online discussions were filled with speculation, guesses, and even accusations. Juanita's name started trending, not because she had spoken, but because the world had read into Valerie's words what they wanted to believe. What had started as an ordinary speech had now sparked a storm of rumors, leaving Juanita caught in the eye of a whirlwind she hadn't created. The situation was delicate, and every passing hour added to the pressure, forcing her to decide whether to stay silent or finally confront the growing wave of assumptions. For weeks, Juanita remained quiet, even as the world around her buzzed with speculation. Every time a new post or video appeared online, her name was dragged into debates she had no part in starting. Friends, colleagues, and fans reached out, asking if she planned to respond, but she held back. Juanita understood the power of silence. She knew that reacting too quickly or emotionally could make things worse. Yet, the silence was not without its cost. She spent long hours reflecting on the situation, reading the messages of support, and sifting through the assumptions and misinterpretations circulating about her. Inside, she felt the tension building. There was frustration, yes, but also clarity. She realized that her response, when it came, needed to be deliberate, composed, and truthful. It wasn't just about addressing rumors, it was about asserting her voice without diminishing her dignity. Juanita's inner dialogue was patient but firm. I will not let misunderstanding define me. I will speak when it is right, not just to react. And though she stayed silent publicly, she was preparing, mentally, for the moment when words would be necessary, a moment that would define the next chapter of this unfolding story. The turning point came unexpectedly. Dr. Valerie Moore released a new interview, speaking with her usual energy and conviction. She didn't mention any names, yet the way she described a certain leader and her comments about responsibility and perception made people immediately think of Juanita. Social media erupted once again, with fans, followers, and critics debating whether the remarks were aimed at her. This time, the speculation reached a new level. Even those who had been defending Juanita began to question what was really happening. Behind the scenes, Juanita's close team recognized that the moment had come for her to respond. They gently reminded her that while silence can be powerful, there are times when clarity is necessary. Juanita felt a mix of emotions. Disappointment that the misunderstanding had grown so large, but also a quiet resolve. She realized that Remaining silent any longer would not stop the assumptions, it would only let them continue unchecked. The pressure of public expectation collided with her sense of personal integrity, and she understood that she had to take control of the narrative. In that moment, Juanita decided that she would speak, but she would do so with grace, authority, and precision. This was the point where the story could no longer unfold without her voice. Her time to clap back had arrived. After days of reflection, Juanita made her decision. She would respond not with anger or defensiveness, but with clarity, poise, and authority. She understood that this moment was bigger than just addressing rumors. It was about standing for her truth, protecting her work, and showing the world how to handle conflict with dignity. Sitting quietly in her space, she began organizing her thoughts. She thought carefully about what she wanted to say, making sure every word reflected honesty and confidence. Juanita knew the power of messaging. She didn't want to inflame the situation, but she also couldn't allow misinterpretations to continue spreading. Once ready, she recorded a video statement. The opening words were simple but strong. "I have listened quietly for some time, but now it is important to clarify a few things." There was no shouting, no finger pointing, only a calm, firm delivery that immediately conveyed strength. Every sentence was deliberate, each idea expressed with respect and transparency. For the first time, Juanita's voice entered the public conversation not as a reaction, but as a clear and composed statement of truth. It was the moment her silence ended, and her perspective finally reached everyone who had been watching, waiting, and speculating. Juanita's response was measured, confident, and precise. She addressed the situation directly, but without aggression or hostility. She clarified the misunderstandings that had been circulating, explaining her perspective calmly and honestly. Her words were firm yet respectful, leaving no room for misinterpretation. She made it clear that her work and her mission were not to be questioned lightly, and that assumptions could easily mislead people if left unchallenged. While she spoke with authority, she also extended a sense of openness, showing that dialogue and understanding were possible if approached respectfully. When referencing Dr. Valerie Moore, Juanita maintained a tone of professionalism, saying something along the lines of, "If there has been any misunderstanding, I am always open to conversation, but my work and integrity cannot be misrepresented." There was no drama, no personal attacks, just a clear and dignified assertion of her position. The combination of calm, authority, and transparency resonated immediately with her audience. It was evident that Juanita was not reacting impulsively. She was leading the conversation with intelligence and grace. Her words had the power to stop speculation, set the record straight, and remind everyone that responding with dignity is far more impactful than responding with anger. This was not just a response, it was a demonstration of strength, self-respect, and professionalism, and it left a lasting impression on everyone who heard it. The moment Juanita's video went live, the response was immediate and overwhelming. Social media lit up with hashtags, comments, and shares as people praised her calm, confident, and dignified way of addressing the situation. Fans expressed admiration for her restraint, noting how she had chosen clarity and truth over drama or confrontation. Supporters felt vindicated that her perspective was finally heard, while others, who had doubted or misinterpreted her intentions, began to reconsider their assumptions. At the same time, reactions to Dr. Valerie Moore were mixed. Some criticized her for creating confusion, while others defended her, suggesting the misunderstanding was unintentional. The conversation dominated online forums, discussions, and news outlets for days, but the key takeaway was clear. Juanita had successfully controlled the narrative without resorting to anger or harsh words. Her approach reminded people that strength is often expressed not through confrontation, but through composure and thoughtfulness. Even those who were initially neutral or skeptical were struck by the authenticity and professionalism of her response. In a world that often rewards loud voices, Juanita's quiet confidence and measured words had made an undeniable impact, proving that dignity and truth can resonate more deeply than controversy ever could. Dr. Valerie Moore watched Juanita's response with a mixture of surprise and reflection. She had expected a reaction, perhaps even a defensive or emotional one, but what she saw was the opposite: calm, clarity, and strength. Valerie realized that Juanita had spoken with precision, leaving no room for misinterpretation or unnecessary conflict. For the first time, Valerie felt the weight of how her words had been perceived and understood, the influence that careful phrasing can have in public discourse. Internally, she began to question whether continuing the tension would be productive or if it was wiser to consider reconciliation. Her team, observing the overwhelmingly positive response to Juanita's statement, advised her to remain silent for now, noting that any impulsive reaction could make things worse. The public was waiting, but Valerie chose patience, understanding that sometimes the most powerful move is not to react immediately. The unexpected silence from her side created an intriguing pause in the story, leaving audiences to wonder how she would respond next, while also highlighting Juanita's professionalism and ability to lead the narrative with grace. It became clear that Juanita had not only defended herself, but had also shifted the dynamics of the entire situation, making Valerie reassess her own approach carefully before speaking again. After the public exchange and Juanita's composed response, rumors began circulating about a potential reconciliation. Both teams started quietly exploring the possibility of a meeting, not for confrontation, but for understanding. Conversations suggested that the situation didn't need to escalate further. Much of the tension had been fueled by misinterpretation and assumptions. Fans and followers speculated endlessly, wondering if the two women might finally address their differences in a private, respectful conversation. While nothing was confirmed, the atmosphere began to shift. What had started as a viral controversy was slowly moving toward resolution, driven not by pressure or conflict, but by reflection and maturity. People admired how Juanita had handled herself, and even those who had supported Valerie recognized the potential for a peaceful outcome. The narrative was no longer about who was right or wrong, it was about communication, respect, and the possibility of turning a tense situation into an opportunity for clarity and reconciliation. The story suggested that, with time, both women could emerge stronger, having maintained their dignity while navigating the complexities of public perception and personal principles. Even after the public response, the story was far from over. Juanita's words had set the record straight, yet the world continued to watch, eager for the next chapter. Social media remained alive with discussions, opinions, and reactions, while fans celebrated her poise and professionalism. At the same time, the silence from Dr. Valerie Moore added a layer of suspense, leaving people to wonder whether reconciliation, clarification, or another twist was coming. The situation had evolved from rumor and speculation to a lesson in dignity, patience, and the power of measured response. Juanita had shown that strength is not about loud confrontation, but about clear, confident communication. And while this chapter had ended, the story's full conclusion was still unwritten. Audiences were left with a sense of anticipation, knowing that when two influential voices intersect, the outcome could change the conversation entirely. In the end, it was not just about clapping back, it was about leading with integrity, proving that sometimes how you respond defines you more than the conflict itself. The final thought lingered. In the world of public perception, silence, voice, and timing are everything, and Juanita had mastered them both.